Today on Coffee Roasting Legends, San Franciscan Roasters Bill Kennedy speaks with 2017 U.S. Roaster Champion Mark Michaelson.
Welcome back to Coffee Roasting Legends, sponsored by the San Franciscan Roaster Company. And today, on this podcast, we're going to be interviewing Mark Michaelson. Mark, as you may know, is a 2017 U.S. Roaster Champion and also placed 11th place in the World Championships that year. And those were held in China at the time. And so Mark is pretty well known, but if you don't know him, then this would be a good time for you to actually get to know him because he's actually on our team here and provides educational services. He's our director of education for San Franciscan Roaster. And anyway, without spending a lot more time, me talking about you, Mark, I'm going to let you talk about you.
Okay.
All right. So
So
let's start at the beginning. There's a time where, you were just plain old ordinary Mark Michaelson, right?
yeah.
But somewhere along the line, coffee came into your existence and piqued your interest. And I'm just gonna let you start from then and tell us your story.
Yeah, so it was around 2008, 2009 is when I caught the bug, if you will. I was a pastor at the time, as some people are aware of, and I would use the coffee shop that was local. I would either go to your brother's shop, which was really good, Kennedy Roasting, that was in Rogers, and then I would go to other places and really try their coffees because I was like, I would see something on the bag that would say apple, and I was like, there's no way that's true. Like you're not going to get an apple taste or a berry taste in the coffee. And so I would meet with people 2 days a week at a coffee shop. And that eventually later became Onyx Coffee Lab, to where we were roasting. He actually asked me if I'd be interested in, because I kept bugging him. I just wouldn't. Something you'll notice about me is I have this grit of not giving up. And so with John, I would like constantly come to him and bring him coffees like try this, try this, try this, try this. And after a while, he kind of got tired of me in a way and was like, hey, I think I should just hire you. And so from that journey, it took me 2 years from 2010 to 2012 to kind of figure out my motto of roasting and like what I liked about coffee. Because when you first start in coffee, it seems that most people go for the acid, which I did, but it wasn't something that's sustainable. And so I wanted something that was round and clean and also had that fruity kind of punch to it. And so, like I was telling you before, I would actually get the numbers of roasteries, whether because I'm from Chicago, so I would call Metropolis, I would call Intelligentsia, I'd call all these different places until they finally answered and were like, okay, well, you can ask us one thing, and what is it? And they would actually tell me. And so that just really helped my coffee journey. And a guy named Velton, that is in the Pacific Northwest, he is a person that actually took the time out of his busy schedule to talk to a lonely roaster that didn't know what he was doing.
Good. And then so you got to this place where we're up to 2010, 2011. By the way, that's when I 2008 is when I took over this brand at the San Franciscan Roaster Company. We didn't call it at the time. Back then it was called Coffee Per, and
Mm.
but we rebranded, started a new company, and kind of took the gold, the good, and tossed the bad, and redesigned a few things. But moving forward. So yeah, tell us what happened. What was after that, and what was your journey?
Uh,
The steps you took?
so the first thing I wanted to do, I was really interested in roasting, but I knew I couldn't cup. And what I had always heard is that if you can't roast, if you can't cup well, and so, or you can't roast well if you can't cup. And so, what ended up happening is I went to Tracy Allen, and we asked him like, would he be able to give us a coffee lesson so that we could start actually turning the numbers to where, hey, this profile tasted this way and this is why. And
Right.
so we did a little bit of work with Tracy, and then about a couple months later, John went and got his cue, and then I got my cue. And that really helped me cement me into knowing the different taste profiles of the thing. But I also went to the Coffee Roasters Guild, and there I met people that I had admired from a distance, whether it was Chris Schooley or Christian, that was the head roaster at Intelli at the time. And like all these different people that were my heroes, Stephen Lee, Joe Morocco. There's just a lot of people, Rob Hughes, I'll probably forget some. But these people like actually took the time to talk to me. And even Peter Giuliani actually, I pulled me aside and I was able to talk with him about his journey and everything. And they just encouraged me to never stop learning. That as a roaster, if you try to stop learning, you really cease to be doing good for what you're trying to get from your roasting coffee and your beans. And so that started through, we were roasting about 75 pounds a week until like we got up into a lot more. But the biggest thing and the biggest one that most people know me for is that I won the 2017 United States Roaster Championship in 2017, and it really cemented my stay in coffee because it was the first time I was competing. I was representing a coffee company and the coffee community at large. And so I competed against 100 and plus of the best coffee roasters in the United States. And they picked mine out blindly the first year. And so I was pretty fortunate. I actually roasted my coffee that hit first. I hit the Brewer's Cup. He won first. I roasted that. And then Andre got second in the world, second in the country with that coffee, and I roasted that for her too. So it was really a reckoning of going, hey, these guys in Northwest Arkansas actually know a little bit about roasting, and we should probably start to like try to get their coffee on our bars and whatnot.
And then Tracy Allen, he has brewed behavior. And then you're talking about John and Andrea at Onyx Coffee Lab.
Yep.
That's where you got your start professionally roasting, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, yeah. So by the time I left, we were roasting so much that I was having to do 30 to 40 roasts a day. And so it became one of those things that like, where do you go from there? And I felt like when I reached out to you about when I was leaving, I actually reached out to Bill for a reference, and Bill, to my surprise, was like, "Why don't you just come work with us?" And like I was shocked because I love the roaster and I love the mechanics. And at the Roasters Guild retreat every year, I would play on the San Frans. They secretly were a love that I really liked and loved to actually see the machines. They were beautiful, yet they were consistent, and they were just great roasters to for somebody to roast on at the Roasters Guild retreat. And in fact, one of the stories that I don't know if we should have helped, but we did. We were doing a competition at the Roasters Guild retreat, and I told them if you roasted on the 1 pounder, here are the things you could look for, and that could transfer to the 6. Nobody else would listen to me except this one team. And as your brother Brent knows, they ended up winning it all. And in a blind taste test, they actually matched the profiles really well and got just an amazing amount of congratulatory types of things. And so it was really fun to see the roaster at work it for San Franciscan and them to actually utilize, because as you know, I mean, you're the owner, but like our sample roaster is built with the same type of parts that our 75 is built with. And that just really helps consistency. And so if you consistently want to get something that you're going to not depreciate in value, it was a whole bunch of things that when you said, hey, let's bring you on, like that just showed me that like this is an avenue by which I can give back to the community by teaching and offering classes at a reasonable rate and actually allowing people to roast and cup with me.
What I really appreciate about you, Mark, is but well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. I do appreciate that too. But about you in particular is your humility and your approach. Um, there are a lot of, let's just say, gurus out there in the coffee world, and they are right and everybody else is wrong. Um, what I really appreciated about you is you help people develop their craft and their style with excellence, but something that's uniquely their own. I don't believe that you step on people's toes, um, but rather you let people just kind of, um, you know, uh, evolve themselves. I know that in coffee is such a complex organic that you can approach a roast a myriad of different ways and come out with an excellent result. There's not just one way to do things. And
Yeah.
that's one of the fantastic things. And of course, we build the roasters in such a way so that your heat application, you have a great diversity of heat applications, conductive, convective, and of course, radiant. Um, but you're in control of all those so that you can have a different outcome either
Yeah.
way, no matter what. So go ahead.
And as you can tell in the background, we got an SF10, and I've been training for the last day and a half, almost 2 days, with some people that's been really awesome in Marco Island, Florida. It's been really cool to actually, like you said, the humility. Like, I don't come off as somebody that knows all, end all, be all, because I realize in coffee, I realized this my seventh year in, and I remember it. It was a Pacamara from El Salvador, and I thought that I had it figured out because I'd roasted it for years. I got it and it just beat me up. Like, it took like four roasts, and when it usually would take one or two for me to hit the mark. And so, again, it's because I realize that I don't know everything. I think too many coffee consultants act as if they have every single answer for every single question. And usually it's unique to the individual. So it might be different for you. Like, your 380 is going to be different than my 380. But, like, what do we teach? The basic principles by which you deduce what you're doing in the roaster to actually apply the heat and the air as you're going on. And so that's one of the things that we have really done. We actually did a batch, we did a soak, and we did the same coffee with gas at the beginning. And the soak, like you suggested, like tasted like night and day better. But it was funny because it followed the line. But again, it showed me that the coffee was quite diverse in its offering, and that I, as the roaster, I get so tired of people saying that, this is kind of my soapbox, but like, to get out of the way of the coffee. Well, no, it's your job to get in the way of the coffee and bring out those inherent flavors that are inside the coffee themselves. And so, like, we were roasting a coffee, a Eurochef natural dry process that, like, at a darker roast, more medium bodied, like, just was smooth, easy to drink. And then we did the soak, and we did a little bit lighter just to kind of see what the potential of this coffee was. And it literally cues an 89. They got it from Coffee Shrub. It's just a complex, just amazing coffee. And they started out right. And so we've been having a lot of fun just teaching. But I always tell people also that it's a safe place. Like, if you mess up, it's not that big of a deal. All the years of me messing up is helping you by when I come out to you, you don't have to mess up all those years in order to figure out what the coffee is doing and what you want. But they procured some really great coffees, and I'm really excited about them opening and serving the community because they are great people.
There's that old saying, a wise person learns from other people's mistakes, uh,
Mm.
but a fool has to make them all themselves. Um, and I say that as, well, both a fool and a wise person, because I think that that's everybody's journey. But if you can lean toward the wise person, that's helpful, right?
Yeah.
Now, you've traveled around the country. You've been with us for quite a few years now, and but also before that, I know that you had your own consulting business, and you've been around, well, the world for that matter. But what are some of the, in teaching people how to roast? Uh, what is one or two experiences that really stick with you in terms of what you bring to the table and what people take away after that experience?
Typically, it's not making as many gas adjustments, allowing the airflow to actually allow the roast to decline in rate of rise. And so, a declining rate of rise, if no one understands that, it's just literally you see the coffee go up and then it goes down, and it's progressively going down as you're roasting. But that's a misnomer. It's always been that way. It's not been something that was coined by any one person. The declining ROR is a normal function of adding room temperature coffee into a roaster that has done that. And so, what I have really appreciated about roasting and some of the things that have made me really get a flu with that is not changing the gas so much, like only making two, maybe three adjustments through the entirety of the roast. That way, you're not actually having to use that as a variable. You knock that out, and then you just control it by using your roast air, because your roasting air will eventually cause the coffee to start declining again. And that's what we want. We want something that just
Mm.
looks good and tastes good. But I think the other thing is there is no perfect profile or ROR. There's just what your roaster does well and how you can manipulate it to roast your coffees. And so, even when I won the 2017 roasting championship, I both flicked and crashed, which is in the industry is totally a bad thing, but I won the championship. And so, again, it showed me that even if the graph looks bad, you need to cup it to see if, hey, this coffee actually did really good at this type of rate of speed, and this is what I really liked about it. So those are the biggest things: is not messing with the gas, not overreacting, because a lot of people will do that, but they have to use Artisan or Cropster or whatever software they're using so that they actually can look at the profile and see where they're at like 5 minutes before they get there. And the wonderful thing about the SF10, it's so powered. You typically will tell somebody to do on the first batch, do like a 60 pound or a 6 pound batch rather than an 8 to 10 pound batch, because the roaster's not that warm. We actually went with the 8 pound batch on the first roast and hit it exactly at 9 minutes and 48 seconds. And so I always preach when I'm talking about coffee that you need to finish the coffee within 10 seconds of each other. And so if your drop temperature is 405 degrees into the cooling tray at 12 minutes, at 12:10 or 11:50, you're within the parameter to getting the same type of development and everything. And so worrying about that, I find that people, once they start understanding what their environmental temperature is teaching them, because that's another nugget, is like figuring out when your environmental temperature starts to spike a bit, that means your rate of rise is going to go up. And so it's warning you in preset that you need to like start adjusting your fuel or adjusting your air in order to control the system more efficiently.
Well, this is where we worked hard to, especially on that particular model, to to get it so that the response time does just what you want when you want it to do, when you want to do it. And I also appreciate the fact that, well, some people can get really fixated on the graph or something, some other aspect besides what the coffee's actually doing, and
Yeah,
I,
you can taste a profile. I mean, you just literally can look at a profile and say it's going to taste this way based upon the way it looks. You need to cup it, because that's not being fair for the coffee, because we as roasters are representing these farmers, and by representing them, we affect their livelihood if we roast the coffee wrong the first time, because that gets to their bottom line. And so
Mhm.
it behooves us to do our due diligence and to do all the things that we do before we get to the coffee, like how do we get to the charge temperature? Like, what are the variables that we need to look at in order to apply the heat in a judicious way to where it's not going to burn the coffee, but it's going to move the coffee along to where you're getting those really good markers, those mile markers, because I teach those too. And then it just allows you to get consistent results from that.
Right. Now describe for me what a typical training experience looks like. You'll arrive, you'll spend a couple days with the clients, and what do those 2 days look like?
So the first thing is, it starts before I actually even get there. I want to talk to the individuals that I'll be roasting and tell them like different places where they can procure beans from,
Mhm.
and that way that they actually have a good selection. Because coffee, a lot like wine or different types of beef and different types of products, are better at certain stages than other coffees itself. Like you don't want to start with a grade 4 Ethiopian because a grade 4 is going to have a lot of Quakers and it's going to taste, Quakery. And so we don't want that taste. And so them starting out before I get there with a plan of action, like these are the coffees I'm going to get. This is the coffees I'm going to blend with. And so I start coaching them even before that so that they're more prepared when I get there. And then when I get there, typically, if they have any coffee they've roasted, what we'll do is we'll spend the first half of the day cupping their coffees, looking at their profiles, seeing what we could do to change that, seeing what they like or dislike about the coffee. And then usually from there, we get this idea. You understand what coffee you're trying to get and what you're trying to achieve from it. And so after that, what we typically will do after lunch is we'll then start roasting coffee. We'll start with the basic parameter of 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and 1 minute to 2 minutes of development. So 3 to 5 in drying, 3 to 5 in Maillard, and then 1 to 2 minutes in development for a coffee we know nothing about. And so the reason people bring me on is I can roast a coffee pretty pretty well the first time, and you just have to know like how to do that. And so that gives them the confidence that it's doable. And so what I do is I show them like by not making so many gas adjustments, how you really can control the environment, just messing with your dampener and getting it to move like a click here and then a click there. And your roaster's trying to tell you those things. And so you just have to like deduce from it that you are going to be doing a little bit of moving as you're doing that. And then the second day, we actually spend the morning cupping all the roasts that we roasted. For this particular one, we had an Ethiopian, a Mexican, and a Colombian because they also want to do a blend. And I suggested, as you do blends, like you don't want to do the natural Ethiopian over 20% because it's just going to overpower the cup. And so I said, get Mexican as a base, Mexican or Guatemalan. We're going by taste, not necessarily by origin. And then get a Colombian that has some cherry notes to it, and then get a natural Ethiopian that has a lot of berries to it. And then we
Right.
made a blend from that. And the blend was just super good, super easy to drink, strawberries, chocolate, a little caramel. And so again, it matters the beans that they bought were great beans to begin with. So as a roaster, it behooves us to roast them in a way that honors what the farmer has spent their livelihood on.
Yep. No, buying high-end coffees is, I think that's one of the best ways to be successful. It's always a balancing act, and if your clientele is all French press or all French roast, then uh, you can you can almost roast just about any kind of coffee with those types of outcomes because the flavor of the roast is what people are looking for. Um, and I think it's important to say that that's not wrong.
Yeah,
But some coffees, like you were saying, boy, the time and care and love that went into producing that coffee every step of the way during the processing and packaging and delivery, etc. Um, you want to honor all of those things, and in turn, if you do it right, that coffee will honor you back and give
yeah,
you an excellent cup. And at the end of the day, we all love coffee, and but we're kind of here to pay the bills, aren't we? Um,
yeah,
you know, uh, put food on the table and pay the mortgage and send your kids to college and or trade school, whatever. And um, yeah, it's all that. And well, to have the equipment and the skill set to be able to bring all that in, I think it's important. Looking
yeah.
to the future, Mark, um, what excites you the most looking forward with coffee?
I kind of alluded to it earlier. Like when you first start in coffee, you like really acid-based berry bombs. And that's just a one-note wonder. That doesn't score that well actually when you do the Q, because Paris, that's also on our team, her and I did the Q together recently, and I re-upped mine. She got hers the first time, which is just almost, as you know, almost impossible. With most people, they typically have to do multiple times and multiple retakes. And so just knowing that, like having a team around that is both encouraging and willing to learn makes a huge difference in the way that the coffee is going to react to that.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, like, friend of mine in the industry, he mentioned once at a talk that he gave, he said that, you can learn to roast in a week, 80% of the skill set, and the other 20% take you the rest of your life.
Yeah,
And then uh, staying committed and connected to engaging that last 20%, um, I think is what keeps your game fresh, right? And
yeah.
so,
And so to go to further answer your question too is to look at the fact that I think like when I first started in 2010, it was again that really light roast that everybody was going for. But I think now there's been about face with most roasters, and they're starting to roast more of that medium roast because they realize they want a balanced cup that is both sweet and acidic, but is balanced out by that sweetness. So I think the industry as a whole is starting to get more towards those coffees that are more medium roasted rather
mhm,
than so light that it just makes you pucker every time you drink the cup. And that's the thing. Like we had people today that tried coffee for the first time black, and we're like, wow, like this is amazing. This tastes really good. Did you add flavoring to it, right? And so they asked that, and it's like, no, it's based upon the terroir. It's the fact that the Ethiopian is from there and it tastes great and it tastes like berries is because it was naturally processed. And so knowing that, and I think that too, besides what's growing, is there's a lot of people that are messing with processing methods. Now you could be, against processing methods, fine. Some people will be advocates of like clean wash coffees, but I think what's happening with the different, like whether it is a um, whether it's one of these different types of processing methods that infuse different fruits and whatnot in it, at the end of the day, it's causing the farmers to actually be paid a living wage. And so, in that regard, I'm really for it. I think the technology out there for like uh, post picking is becoming so great right now, and we're able to actually look at the different flavors and know the types of things that we're going to get. And so, processing method has really been big. When I was in Brazil, it's 2017 when I went with the roasting trip, and like I was talking to the Brazilian, the people that are on the board of the coffee, and I was telling them about like, hey, these people are doing different processes. You should try that on your coffee. So the younger generation in Brazil was really trying to mess with fermentation so that they can get a different result out of the coffee. And I think that is also the next thing is we're going to finally figure out where the anaerobic process goes and who likes it and who doesn't necessarily like it. We always say every coffee has a home. It may not be your home, but every coffee has a home.
that's true. I really appreciate your marks in that regard. And that's kind of our philosophy. I think our niche as a company wanting to be able to provide the kind of equipment that will allow the broadest diversity again of applications to bring out just about everything imaginable that a coffee can present. Uh, just using different approaches. Um, and that, well, I mean, there are applications that where some of the tracing the red line over the blue line. I call that the world's slowest video game, by the way. Um, and to me, that's not roasting. But what is roasting is using all your senses during the entire roast, and then all your senses when you're doing the sensory. Because
Yeah,
using your olfactory, using the audio, what you hear in the drum, having a roaster that you can actually hear what's going on inside the drum. I mean, we've had blind clients that I've been able to roast with, and when they tell me what they're hearing, my mind doesn't immediately go there, but as soon as they point out a certain aspect, a certain sound, it just makes all the sense, and where you can tell the difference between a softer Brazil or a harder, more dense Sumatra, for example. Um, Again, it's super sensory engaging for the whole human experience, and that's where we really want to engage the artisan, the craft roaster. And like I said, there's a place for the blue line and the green line and the red line and all the jiggles and wiggles that you see on the scope. But there's also a place first, I believe, to learn to embrace, do the hard stuff, the hard training with the human senses, and developing that human uh, mindset to craft roasting. Uh, I think we've reached our time here. Would like to wrap it up. Any last words of wisdom you want to share with folks?
Yes, something that a fellow roaster named Marty Curtis told me when I first started roasting about roasting. The best roaster in the world stands on 2 feet. It's the individual. Like you said, it's the idea that they're using their sensory, using their smell, using everything, the audio to actually make different adjustments on the coffee. And so the best roaster is going to be the human that's operating it, not somebody that's just following a line to like hit a thing, but somebody that's actually intuitively looking at the coffee graph and going, okay, here I need to make a little slight adjustment. And so just remember, you can learn and you can get better. You just have to practice. Practice literally makes perfect. That whole 10,000 hours to master something is something masterful about that, because it's so true that it takes you a long time in order to get in grips with what you actually need to know about roasting and what is can kind of fall by the wayside.
Well, thanks, Mark. I appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom with everybody. And again, this is the San Franciscan Roaster Coffee Legends podcast, and featuring Mark Michaelson. And if you want to reach out to us, go to our website, www.sanfranroaster.com. We did that because it's hard to spell San Franciscan sometimes. Anyway, thanks again, Mark. You have a great afternoon, and we'll see you when you get back.
All right. Well, see you then. Bye bye.
Bye.